Just, oh, there it goes. All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you at home, welcome to the Indian River Lagoon Council Board of Directors meeting. Today is February 9th, 2024. Current time is 9:34. All right, we'll call the meeting to order and join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So they want me out of here. So I understand that this is the election of officers. I'm going to turn this over to Glenn, and the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, 15. Well, this is pretty straightforward. Is there a motion to elect the officers to this body? You usually have your normal rotation, so. Right.
Is there a motion to nominate Commissioner Brower? So moved. We have a motion. Is there a second? And a second. Any comments or questions on the item? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. The gavel is yours.
Now you
Mexico, here I come.
How about the vice chair?
It's also you.
Do we need to elect?
Mr. Chair, I nominate Stacy Hetherington as vice chair.
Okay.
I'm sorry, no. It's Joe Ehrman.
Joe Ehrman is vice chair, Stacy Hetherington secretary.
That's my motion.
Motion and second. Any comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. We have a new board.
Mr. Chair, I just got a text. Libby's on her way. She's running 15 minutes late. And so South Florida will be here, the Water Management District, but she's tied up in traffic.
Yeah,
Is she bringing bagels?
I'll text her back.
The fog's been a little weird today.
Yes, it has. Chris, you have,
I didn't do it.
you have served with distinction. It has been very obvious that the Indian River Lagoon is in your heart, but you served not just by emotion, you served with your mind and with good ideas and with a lot of time, and we all want to take this time to thank you for your service, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. Volusia County looks forward to continuing to work with you and continue the strategies and the ideas that you have had. As you know,
You're gonna make me cry, Jeff.
we usually
Did anybody tell him that I cry at these things?
We usually do let you take the gavel home, but it's it's a little fancier than normal. It's actually got part of the Indian River Lagoon on it, and so I just want to present this to you and say once again, thank you for your service, brother. Thank you so much.
I'm speechless. That's how you do it. That's how they've been trying to figure that out for years, how to keep me speechless. It has certainly been an honor to serve on this particular board, and the work that we've done and the accomplishments that have occurred. And we're making a difference. We're making a difference every day, every week, every year. And it's with our great leadership and Dr. DeFries and his staff who are invested each and every day in attempting to help us find our way. It's been a pleasure and an honor to work with each of you here on the dais and those who have come before you. it's always interesting when you have been on a particular board for a period of time, you go through iterations of a board, but the mission has always stayed the same. And it hasn't been any diversion of effort and or focus. And again, I just want to say it's been an honor to be here as a member and chair for a couple of rotations. And Jeff, I know you're going to do great. And again, don't be scared. You know, my hour-and-a-half meetings are intimidating for most who take the chair after me, but I'm kidding. But no, again, Mr. Chair, thank you for the honor.
You're welcome. It's well-deserved. I'd like to, since this is the same people, but a new board, new structure, I'd like to start on the left. If everybody would just introduce themselves and tell us where you're from.
Good morning. I'm Aaron Watkins, representing the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. I'm the director at Central District in Orlando.
Good morning. Rob Feltner from Brevard County Commission.
And I am Jeff Brower from Volusia County, the Volusia County Chair.
Okay, I'm Chris Sadowski, St. Lucie County Commissioner and ex-chair, former chair.
Doug Bornick, St. Johns River.
Joe Ehrman, Indian River County Commissioner.
Thank you. Do we have any elected public servants in the room that we could recognize? Nobody? Okay. At this time, I'd like to recognize Jennifer DeMeo and Becky Allenback of the EPA Region 4, who I believe are watching the meeting online. Is that true?
That's correct.
So, where's the cameras? So welcome. We're glad you're with us virtually. We do have a very special guest with us this morning, Dr. Mark Raines, professor at University of South Florida and chief scientist for Florida, appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis. And I'd like to invite Mark to come up and address the board, if you would, please. We're really glad to have you here. Thank you.
Well, first I want to thank you guys for your service. I'm a big fan of the NAPs nationwide, but none more so than the IRL NAP, and I appreciate the service you guys have provided for them. I just want to comment briefly on meeting the moment. And to do so, let's go back to January 2019. Governor DeSantis has just taken office, and he signed Executive Order 1912, which pledged $2.5 billion to water quality restoration, and specifically mentioned the Everglades repeatedly, which was appropriate, right? Everglades, a national treasure, and a place we should really be paying a lot of attention to. And fast forward 4 years, it turned out to be $3.3 billion state commitment, so that was a floor, not a ceiling. Along the way, we started talking about what another executive order would look like if he were to win a second term. And the first time I was asked was in a sort of social setting in summer of 2021. We were at a conference, and a big group of us, and I was asked pointedly, if you were reelected and we wrote another executive order, what it ought to look like. And I, without missing a beat, said we should take Executive Order 1912 and search and replace the Everglades with the IRL. And there was a lot of shock and laughter and chiding me, and I said, I'm just joking, of course. But I think we should think about, the IRL as being sort of equal to the Everglades. It's maybe less well-known internationally, but it's no less an international treasure. And so that was my entry into this conversation that continued on until Governor DeSantis was reelected and signed Executive Order 2306, which, as you know, in this case, pledged $3.5 billion to restoration over the next 4 years. Again, spoke repeatedly about the Everglades, but had a special carve out for the IRL, right? $400 million a year, and given the fact, or over 4 years, and given the fact that we've seen in the past, we ought to think of that as a floor, not a ceiling, right? So I don't know what the total number is going to be, but we saw in the first session last spring, the money came through from the legislature. I expect it to come again this year, the year after, and the year after that. And maybe it's 400 million. I'd be a little bit disappointed if it was just that. Maybe it's 500 million. Who knows what it is, okay? But I think we should think about this in two ways. First of all, I think we should trust in that, right? The record is clear. I think that money will continue to come from the governor and the legislature. But the other way we ought to think about it is with a sense of urgency, because I don't know what it looks like the session after that, right? It's a different governor, it's a different legislature. I can't imagine what it would look like for them to say water quality wasn't important, but I can imagine what it would look like for them to say water quality is important and not appropriate record funds, right? So there's this moment in time where I think we can trust in the fact that money is coming, and it will continue to come in record amounts, but that might be a moment in time that we should jump on. And so I just want to encourage us to be thinking about it in that way, that sort of trust yet a sense of urgency, and continue to work together to choose the best projects that have the biggest benefit and build the best platform, foundation for us as we move on from there. And I'll look forward to working with you guys to make that happen. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much for those wise words. Anybody have any questions for Dr. Raines?
I do.
Okay.
One, I want to thank you for coming. We really greatly appreciate your being here and your understanding how important this lagoon is and how important water quality is. Water is the most important natural asset this peninsula has. Nothing else comes close for our economy, for good agriculture, for keeping hotels full, restaurants full, people, tourism. Water quality is it. We have cities right now, city of Riviera Beach, they have E. coli and fecal coliform in their water, and their water is yellow. And that's just one. When we go into a drought, and we eventually will, we've been very lucky since 2010 when we had the worst drought in a long time, where Lake O hit its lowest level ever. We haven't been in a drought, but when we do, we're going to find out we're not that well prepared for the future for providing high quality water to all the citizens, because now we have 22 million people. And so your comments are a blessing. I'm glad you're here and you're understanding how important this lagoon is to this region. It is the most important natural asset we have. And I'm on the St. John's Governing Board. And so that lagoon for the economy of the East Coast is paramount to our future. And your understanding of that is welcome news. And thank you again for being here.
Well, thank you very much. To be honest, the very first project when I came to the state was on the Indian River Lagoon. And so this is 2003. I'd moved here, young professor at University of South Florida, started working in the Indian River Lagoon, and have really just made it sort of a second home. So I appreciate the opportunity to help you guys achieve your goals. Thank you.
Dr. Raines, I'm going to add to that just by way of encouragement, not only to you, but to the entire board. This week, I was asked to come speak to a group I didn't even know existed. It was the Military Officers of America, and they specifically asked me to come speak on water issues, water quality. And when I got there, I realized that it was probably 65 to 98 years old crowd. They had grown up on the lagoon. They had fished the Mosquito Lagoon, and they know there's issues. They know there's concerns, and it was just encouraging to me to see that the word is getting out to the public that there is good work going on and more work that needs to be done. So I encouraged all of them to let their representatives and state senators know that the work must go on. We need more funding, and I think they'll follow through and do it. So the public is paying attention. And they're behind us.
And I keep thinking there's this moment in time, and if we take advantage of it, we create a new culture that continues on, right? And so I really do hope that we take the best advantage of this moment, and it becomes sort of a cultural expectation. We all expect the state's going to make these investments in our water quality. And so anything the public can do to help was greatly appreciated.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
If I might, I'd like to just take this moment with Dr. Raines here to just say thank you to DEP for your leadership. Many of you may remember back in 2015 when the IRL Council was created by interlocal agreement. Each of you represent a county, a water management district, and DEP with an investment in the council. And that was a formidable and historic moment. Just want to let you all know that we relook at that interlocal agreement every 5 years and we'll be doing so in 2025. And I'd like to think that our reorganization in 2015 has a lot to do with where we are today. And DEP, some of you, newer members probably are not aware, but we are in the DEP recurring budget for that contribution, which is a formidable commitment from the agency. So Mark, I want to thank you and Aaron and DEP. Yes. Please extend that up to the Secretary. All of your support is what makes us run, and that financial base is what's leveraging federal and local support from other areas. So thanks again to DEP and all of you, and we'll be looking at that interlocal agreement, in short order.
Well, thank you for that. And while each of us up here plays a role, Dr. DeFries, it's amazing the work that you do with the staff that you have. They're talented. You just have an excellent staff here. I'm amazed at the work that goes out, the resources that we have to share with our communities. So it goes both ways. Thank you for the incredible work that you do and everybody that's sitting up here. And congratulations. Okay, let's move to the agenda. Does anybody have any revisions for today's agenda? Okay, and I don't see any. Can I just get a motion to approve the agenda as written?
Move approval.
Move approval by Chris, second. I'll second. And a second. I'm gonna learn everybody's name here. Pardon me? Second by Rob. Feltner. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the agenda is approved, so we will move on. Do we have any, I don't see any resolutions, recognition letters, and awards, other than the one already given. It's a very special
Still
award.
greatly appreciated.
All right, we will move to public comment, and we do have a few people that would like to speak, and I believe the first two are going to come together, Patty Barlow and Richard Carl Sylvester. Is that true? Are you coming up together?
Yeah, I'm going to follow.
Okay, Patty Barlow.
Okay, thank you so much for allowing us to come here today. Again, my name is Patty Barlow, and I'm with the St. Lucie County Conservation Alliance, and I'm here today to help save the Riverwatch Conservation Easement from dredging. So I'll just do I think it's easier for me to just kind of read this, if that's okay, and I tried to slim it down as much as possible, just to give you an idea of what the Riverwatch Conservation Easement is about. The Riverwatch Conservation Easement is a 12.9 acre mangrove forest on the Indian River and connected to a 153 acre preserve, which borders on the St. Lucie and Martin counties on South Hutchinson Island. Now, in 1991, the conservation deed was ratified, and that restricts dredging, all these things in perpetuity, on dredging, gas and diesel engines, and destruction of native vegetation. It is also an essential fish habitat and a manatee birthing area. Right now, currently, there are 3 permit applications in progress. And the first, the DEP application to dredge 17,000 square feet on the conservation channel, which was supposed to be protected in perpetuity, to a minus 5 feet mean low water. And this will allow deep water access to the ocean and also into the conservation easement. The second one is the FDEP application to remove a conservation easement on gasoline, diesel engine vessels. And this will allow them to churn through the channel with diesel engine vessels, large boats. And then the third application is through Army Corps, and it's basically the same thing, to dredge 17,000 square feet on the conservation easement channel. And there was a little good news. We've been having these permit applications coming more and more quickly. My husband was the POA president of the Riverwatch Association, which is adjacent to this conservation easement, and he was there for 20 years. In the past 2 years, we've had five permit applications to dredge this area in the same manner. Anyway, some good news. On January 19th, 2024, there was a letter from William Lang, the environmental manager of FDEP Southeast District, and he did say that the 1986 FDEP permit was a one-time only dredge of the channel to a depth of minus 1 feet mean low water. So that may help. And also in a separate letter, dated 1/19/24, Ashley Levere of Florida Fish and Wildlife Imperiled Species Management wrote, statewide seagrass data compiled by Florida Fish and Wildlife Research Institute indicates seagrass presence in the proposed project area. And I have been out there on my kayak, and I have also taken pictures of this. And it's, I just want to end my presentation by showing you this photo, which is, I don't know if you can see it. I know it's kind of small. Okay, but this is a photo of a huge barge coming through a small channel that we're talking about, the Riverwatch Conservation Easement, and it destroyed 1,300 feet of, and it was propelled by 2 engines, and it had to pass by a sign from DEP that stated, warning, no gasoline engines in this area. So it went back actually twice. It came in March, and then it came in January, and then it came back in April. So the FDEP did a report, 27-page report, which shows the damage of 1,300 square feet of mangroves on both sides of that channel. Because this was such a large barge, it hit both sides, and it kind of just destroyed all the mangroves. And Bailey Daniels did an excellent job of her presentation of this data, all these photos of crushed mangroves and so forth. And I was very upset when I heard the letter that stated from the DEP that said, we have closed out the investigation for this incident and will not be taking any further action. The thing I'm hoping we can do most of all is to protect this conservation easement and keep it. It's been around for 30 years, and hopefully together we can save it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Patty, is it my recollection that you actually have been invested in environmental issues, and you had a boss who was very instrumental in moving some things across? Didn't you work for Senator Negron?
No.
That wasn't
I
you?
don't know. Somebody else, you know who Amy Griffin asked me that? No.
Yeah.
I've been working on saving this entire area since I moved in 25 years ago, because there are a lot of wetlands that had proposals on it, and it wasn't necessarily, they were next to the conservation easement, but they had been proposed for multi-level, multi-family buildings to be developed on it. So I've been trying to save that, because Hutchinson Island, especially this area, and once people think they can get through on a conservation easement, all this property, I guess, will go up in value, and I don't know what the chances of saving it are, but
My mistake.
no.
Your name is familiar to me.
Well,
so
it could be, I don't know, Harold Phillips from the Audubon helped me a lot many years ago, so
Okay.
I don't know if that's what it was from.
all right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Chris, I was going to ask you a question, but I think you just answered it for me. In Volusia County's council, when the public comes up and speak, we're not allowed to ask questions. I don't like that rule, but it's there for a reason. We might get 7, we might get 100 people come, and so it's a time issue. It's going to ask you to remind me of what the rule is here. Apparently, we can ask questions of the public.
Yeah, it's really up to the chair, and, you know, in situations like this particularly, time was of the essence based on what I heard.
Yeah.
And I thought having, you know, at least ask a couple questions and
Yep.
understanding
Glad you
that
did.
there was a recent issue of mass mangrove maceration for alliteration purposes. And the DEP fined that group, that hotel, that resort, significant sums of money and has to redo the mangroves that were destroyed. So it's kind of timely, and what I heard from the presentation was the mangroves were heavily damaged.
Yes.
And so as part of what we do, we're trying to take contaminants out of the water, and then when we have situations where we have conservation easements over a property where mangroves are existing and seagrass is existing, shouldn't we try to protect that? And so I had asked Patty to come and speak today. I heard her speak last night, and so as part of that conversation, I thought it was important to hear from all of us who are invested in the lagoon to understand that there are other issues other than incoming contaminations. There are those situations that are happening on the lagoon that we may not have our eyes on. So I thought it was important to at least hear about what was unfolding in her area.
It is. Thank you for inviting her. And thank you.
Thank you.
Real quick, thank you so much. I appreciate you, sharing your concern. I'm from the Central District in Orlando. However, our director in Southeast District, who's the report that you mentioned, also sits on the board. I appreciate the information. I've taken the notes, and I'm going to be happy to pass that along to the Southeast District to be aware of the concerns and also your information to coordinate from their end. So I'll help facilitate that.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that my main concern is to preserve the conservation easement, not to go after, damages or whatever. Just preserve it as it has been for the past 30 years.
Okay.
Thank you.
Patty, we would like to have your report for our record. Would you hand it to staff over here? So do you have a copy that you could leave?
Oh, you mean the report that's from the FDEP about the situation?
Anything that you have. Is that
Yeah, I can give it to you.
Okay.
Who do I give it to? Okay. Here you go.
And thank you for taking
Okay.
your time to come in.
Thank you. I forgot to show the pictures, but can I give you one quick shot? This is it.
Oh, wow.
It's a beautiful, beautiful area.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Richard Carl Silvestri. And when you come up, just you don't have to give your full address for safety reasons, but just tell us where you're from.
Richard Carl Silvestri. I emphasize the Carl because my son is Richard John, so we don't want to, get the record confused here. If you had told me last night at 8 p.m. that I'd be standing here this morning, I would have called you a name or something. There's no way that's possible. But I was at that meeting last night with the St. Lucie Conservation Alliance, and I heard Patty speak. I never met her before. She impressed me with her sincerity. I think what's interesting to note is she owns a property on that little body of water, and were this to be opened up to the lagoon, the value of her property would go way up, because then you could have motorized, no fixed bridge ocean access from her backyard and her neighbors' backyards. So I think her sincerity is there. She's not looking at the money. She's looking at, the environment. So the best I could do with my computer when I got home last night and early this morning was to give you some Google Earth pictures of what she's talking about. And I hope that you have those in front of you. It should be 2 sheets that they've got them. Okay. So on the left side of the photo is an arrow that I pointed to that's the mouth of this little lagoon, which was really like a lake, a small pond. saltwater pond, and that arrow points to the access that she's referring to that would be dredged out to the depth of 5 feet. And I started kayaking. I lived on the island. I put an X up in the upper right-hand corner of approximately where I lived for some 30 years. And about 30 years ago, I started kayaking, and I went into this little cove one time out of curiosity, and my kayak is 22 inches wide, and I could barely squeeze through there. Now, I'm going back, 30 years or so, and I've been in there several times since, but not for quite a while. So she showed the picture of a barge going in, and my suspicion is that somebody's building a dock, and there have been numerous docks built behind her neighbors' houses. And the way they do it is the dock builders come in with a barge, a crane on it or whatever. And so they've kind of created this channel. And so what we have here is what I call incremental violation of the law. This cove was put in there for drainage for the mosquito lagoon to the south and the county property, and it was never to be opened up to the lagoon. But it's opened up gradually and gradually, incrementally over the years, and now we're at the point, well, okay, let's do a 5-foot deep channel, and let's put the permit in for it. So my impression from what Commissioner Zadowski said last night is this council has sway as to regarding who gets permits and for what. I think that your recommendations would go a lot further than mine. And what I'm standing here before you is to say that this should not be opened up. This was never intended to be opened up. And if you allow this, if someone allows this to happen, maybe not this council, maybe the DEP, maybe the Corps of Engineers, if they allow this to happen, what's to stop the next one from opening and the next one from opening? And, I drove home last night and said, what do I want to get involved with this? I'm 80 years old. Do I need to do this? And I thought to myself, you know what? Everybody can say that. Let's pass it off and let's not worry about it. So I said, I'm coming. And here I am, and that's my story. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in. Chris, did you have anything else for him?
Just that, again, we get asked to do a lot of things in the NEP, and oftentimes we get asked to put ourselves into permit issues. Well, this is not that agency, but we all represent government agencies along the lagoon, including our regulatory agencies such as FDEP and South Florida Water Management, St. John's, et cetera. And so letting us hear this story, this information, I think is important. And in the case of what was brought forward and I was educated about last night, is that time is of the essence. And again, we are trying to increase the number of dollars coming in to take contaminants out of the lagoon, protect the lagoon, shoreline protection, mangrove forest, and this is just one of those situations that needed to have some light on it to say, hey, we're trying to spend all this money to protect a lagoon. Here's one where we don't have to do anything except stop the degradation of a mangrove forest and degradation of seagrass. So I thought it was important to bring it forward to get some eyes and some ears on the situation and let the public also know that this is occurring. Because if it's happening in the area of the southern lagoon, it can happen anywhere along the lagoon all the way to the north. And so we're all invested, and that's why I wanted to have them come and speak to this to put some light on it.
And I'm glad you did. Thank you both again for coming in.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Zadowski. You've expressed it so much more eloquently than I could have. Thank you.
Been doing this a while.
Okay, Terry McGinn.
Hi, my name's Terry McGinn, and I live in Sebastian, but I also live in Boughton in Indian River County. I came here this morning because it's a public comment, and we have a group that's been almost a year and a half now trying to accomplish a result. I'm going to try and do this with a GE NBC white paper approach, if you're old enough to understand that. And thanks, Chris. preventive, not reactive. We need to prevent, not try and do remediation after the fact. We have a group, and the group has 3,700 signatures on a petition to try and stop what's got to be, which two mayors in the city of Sebastian have said may be the worst problem we've had in this area in 10 years. The Wind Building Corporation has applied for an application to build an 84-room, 40-foot tall a hotel. And they've made 3 tries. The first try was called an Echo Lodge. They came back with a second try, which was host to suite. And you can see the same hotel out on Route 95 and Route 60. It belongs on a highway interchange. The third, when that was failing, and the third try is a Hampton Inn. And they did, with the Hampton Inn, they turned it sideways and they dropped it to 84. That's 84 rooms, 84 parking spaces. Now, I want to quote one paragraph of the county code. It's paragraph 4B, buried in with the difference between major and minor projects. And I'll come to a point. This is a point. I don't know how that got put into the comprehensive plan in the code, but the paragraph says that if a major project is less than 150,000 square feet of impervious ground, it can be considered a minor project. That's 3.44 acres of pervious ground, and anything under that can fly under the radar as a minor project. And what does that mean in the county? It means that the whole project gets reviewed by the staff only, never makes it to the zoning and planning board, and never gets a public hearing, and never gets to the commission to be decided on. Now, I understand, and I've spoken to Joe Ehrman twice, once before and now, and I've listened to everybody here say that we really need to solve all the problems we've created. What we really need to do is stop those problems. Now, we're going to trade pristine waterfront for concrete and asphalt. That's in effect what this is going to do. Here you've got an 84-year-old man who has been quoted as saying, I was paddling my kayak and I saw this beautiful, pristine piece of property, and I'm richer than heck, and I probably won't live to see the thing built, but I want to build a hotel on that property. It's 2.7 acres. I have hundreds of pages on this. I've been working on this thing, along with a lot of other people, including Mike and Jeannie Soul. Do you know Mike Soul? I think you might know Mike Soul. He was with DEP. He lives in that area. This is nearly a wetland, and at the end of all of this, if anyone wants to take my name, I can send you information, including 100 photographs of what this place looks like. It's beautiful. So 2.7 acres will be covered with something over heavy soil with a 3-foot water table. That has been proven. It's been tested. The water table below ground in normal dry conditions is 1.7 feet, 3 feet, and at the most 4 feet by the road, by the Indian River Drive. Just last week, I got photographs from the next door neighbor who said that the wind only with no rain drove water up on this ground. That's how low and how saturated it is. But this major project is being reviewed by them as a minor project, and the public has really not been allowed to even get concerned. But we are. The City Council of Sebastian has sent 2 letters. The mayors have sent 2 letters. Mike Soul has sent a letter. And the basic answer is, there's not much we can do about that. In 10 years, people will be trying to figure out how to solve this problem. This is the organization chart for the county. And by creating it as a minor project, you basically have, you have 2 lines of organization. And one of them is natural resources, stormwater, coastal engineering, soil and conservation, Indian River Lagoon, and environmental planning. Down the one next to it is planning and division and staff. With a minor project, all they get are comments from the other departments,
Right.
so that's the point.
Thank you. Terry, can you wind it up?
Yes. I would have any information available you might want.
Give that to her. I appreciate you coming in. This is a challenge that we face in Volusia County as well. Probably every county does. If we don't change our development pattern, including where we build, and go in and drain wetlands, fill them in, and make them impervious, we're going to continue to destroy the lagoon. The easiest way, you're right, is to prevent it instead of coming back and trying to mitigate it.
I want to close with one thing. I came here knowing, I spoke to Dr. DeVries last year. I came here knowing that most of these groups can advise only. Most of the people on this council don't legislate, they advise.
Right.
And I didn't expect anything to come out of this in terms of an action, except maybe that the county commissioners will listen to the 3,700 people that have opposed this.
Doug, did you have something?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you live in Sebastian, you live up in this area,
Or if you live up in this area, it's definitely, you know about it. It's a project of, obviously, of a hotel wanting to be located in the Indian River. While I personally don't think it's a good idea, it's really up to staff review. It's been in staff review for a long time, based on several factors such as the impervious service and other things. But it's yet to be determined whether this is going to move forward or not. It's still being looked at, and where it is at this point in time, how far it's gotten, I can't really say yet. But it's still under review by staff, and I don't know. According to our ordinance, it doesn't necessarily have to come before the board. It could go through and under staff approval, such as a lot of buildings, as we all know, can move forward with staff approval. But I'm sure we'll take another look at this. The commission may address it at some point in time if they're able, but right now it's still in staff review.
Okay, thank you. Chris, did you have something?
Yeah, just a final thing. Just, it's interesting. These things come in front of us, and in our charter, actually, it even states clearly that we don't have that authority to go after permit issues and make a statement thereof. But I think the public's interest in coming to a group that is protecting the lagoon, it's simple to understand that they want to have that voice and that opportunity. The difficulty is for us is we usually have 3 minutes, and we're excited that you're here and you have a point of view. But for us, it's very difficult to run the meeting and have that conversation.
Yes.
That's what I think
I
Chair was saying
understand.
before. So, but we appreciate the passion and certainly the interest.
I'll leave
Thank
you
you for
with
coming.
I'll leave you with one irony. The man purchased 4 acres on US 1 right across the street from this parcel that's on the lagoon. And that 4 acres would be perfect for the hotel that everybody would welcome. All he's got to do is move the bloody thing across the street. Thank you.
All right, thank you for coming in. Kendra Bergman, I'm going to hold you until item 12 to see what questions we might have there. So we will move on to...
Mr. Chair, it
yes,
looks
sir.
like we have another speaker card being filled out right now.
Okay, and so we'll wait for him, but I'll tell you what's coming up next with item 7. We'll move to the water quality reports in just a second with Northern and Central Lagoon and the Southern Lagoon. And right now, we have Mike Soul.
Guess it's my name got mentioned. Good afternoon, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. Mike Soul. I live in Sebastian, Florida. Truly is your responsibility. I don't want to speak about individual permitting issues because I know that's not in your control. But I do want to comment about the one issue that, in my view, based upon my experience, that the lagoon struggles with, and it's truly a water quality issue. And I know we all try to navigate how to improve the water quality within the IRL, and it's a huge challenge. But the development that was spoken of, I've gone through the stormwater issues, and I know St. John's is going to look at it, and they'll probably meet the criteria. But that doesn't mean there's not going to be additional nutrient load into the Indian River Lagoon. So what does that mean? It means really we've got to start looking at this thing with a different lens, because the presumptive criteria that the DEP and the St. Johns River Water Management District provides for stormwater doesn't mean zero discharge. There will be a nutrient load added as a result of this additional development. And DEP has documented, at least in this region, about 60% of our nutrient load going into the river is really from groundwater. Nutrients that have been enriched as a result of septic tanks, things of that nature. And these are the things that we need to grab onto to start solving the problem of the nutrient degradation that we have in the lagoon. And I hope that as you guys navigate, either in your individual or your collective responsibilities, we really just focus on this, because there are a lot of issues that are challenging the IRL, and I agree, these are all legitimate issues, but until you solve the water quality problem, and it's going to take decades to do so, these other things are still not going to happen. If you do not get the water quality right, our restoration efforts for seagrass, things of that nature, they will probably fail. And then we will be putting money for not good. And I've done it. I've given grants in my past life to the St. Lucie estuary, the St. Lucie River, which discharged. We did a lot of oyster restorations. They would thrive when it was dry. As soon as we had wet weather, because we didn't manage our water effectively, it all died. I don't know how many times we've done oyster restoration. That was created, money's gone to it, but it died because we're not getting the water right. So please focus on that, and please, as your individual respective responsibilities as well as this collective body, look at ways and take action. And honestly, it really is action that we need, not studies. It's time just to take action. Some things are going to work. They're all going to have incremental improvement. Some will be better than others, and we'll learn from there. Thank you for everything that you do.
Well said. Mike, would you
I'll
take
fill
this,
that out
would
for
you take it back? I would love to have your email address for further follow-up with you. Well stated. Thank you for coming in.
Mr. Chair, before you move on, I just want to have a point of clarification.
Okay.
We have heard about a number of projects, like you heard today, work closely with our community who call us directly with these issues.
Good.
And so we are open to directing citizens to the appropriate regulatory and authority bodies. But I think it's important to reiterate, and Commissioner Zadowski said this, you know, our charter, our authorization under Section 320 of the Clean Water Act is that we are a non-regulatory organization, right, and a coalition of partners looking at the big picture. And so while we can't take action on this, you serve as a very important community portal, as does staff, to try to, you know, get citizens who have concerns to the right agencies, the right people. And I want you to know that we do that on a weekly basis. And you don't see that activity with the community, but we hear more and more, and you heard it earlier, the amount of growth we're seeing in the state of Florida, 800 to 1,000 people a day. We're getting more and more calls about low-impact development, runoff, and there's no question that each of you, you know, are representing bodies with regulatory authority, you know, in your own shops, but that's not our role, not our authority, and to be honest, we do not have, the IRL Council does not have authority to take any action or even recommendations on these issues. So I just want to really clarify that, because a lot of the general public see us differently. They just don't understand the charter that we have as a federally funded and locally directed coalition of partners.
But you are referring them on as appropriate.
Not only referring, but we spend hours in technical discussions trying to get individuals who have legitimate concerns but may not know how to articulate those concerns, don't understand the regulatory process. I think Aaron knows I have sent a number to DEP at the Central District, you know, to try to connect these concerned citizens with the right agency partners. And that's part of the power of us standing as a coalition and not as a regulatory body.
Thank you. Chris?
Mr. Chair, I know we want to move on with the meeting. I just want to quickly say that, you know, the difficulty that you have locally is that your elected officials at the city and county level, oftentimes our hands are tied with issues that preempt local government's ability to control things in their particular boundaries. So I would suggest those of you who have concerns about how local government interacts with the development community is to seek legislative support and the governor's support with trying to provide the power and the opportunity to control the interests which are in your community. Without that power, the lawsuits will come. Taxpayers will pay dearly for what is called a taking. If you want to look it up, it's a Burt Harris claim, and it can be costly to local government and taxpayers. So your elected leaders have to be very careful as to how they approve or disapprove any kind of development or put conditions on development. So it's important to understand that, and that if you want to have that opportunity to give your local officials more ability to control what's within their boundaries, it's going to have to be a legislative issue, and so you're going to have to talk to your legislative group and send it up the chain to the governor's office to gain that support so that your local officials will have more ability to control what's in your neighborhood.
Thank you very much. And Libby Pigman, I want everybody else to introduce themselves. I just wanted to welcome you. You were from the South Florida Water Management District, stuck in traffic. We're glad you made it here safe. So, yeah, no apology necessary. So that brings us to Lauren Hall with a water quality report on the Northern and Central Lagoon.
Good morning, members of the board. I'm Lauren Hall with the St. Johns River Water Management District. They see the president. There we go. I'm here to present today the conditions in the Northern and Central Indian River Lagoon. The next several slides will show you the data from the continuous monitoring stations that are maintained by the Water Management District. We have a site in Mosquito Lagoon, one in Titusville, one in Cocoa, a site in Banana River Lagoon, O'Galley, just outside of O'Galley River, and then one down in Vero Beach. Water depth has been dropping the last several weeks. Similar to how we see a fall water level rise, it's fairly typical to see a water level decline this time of year, and we are seeing that at all of our 6 stations. Salinity remains in the brackish range. The highest salinity we're seeing is in Mosquito Lagoon, and these small salinity dips that you see, in particular in mid-December, are controlled by the rainfall events that we've been having. Water temperature has been fluctuating, and it usually is following these fronts that we've been getting. We'll get a cold front, we'll see that temperature decline, and then we get a little bit of a warm front again, and we see that temperature go back up. We're expecting some warmer weather again early next week, so I expect to see our temperature will rise again. But we are remaining between 15 and 25 degrees centigrade. We have not seen a lot of bloom activity during this time of year, and our chlorophyll concentrations remain low with the exception of the O'Galley site. We are seeing some spiky data coming through O'Galley. We did get reports at the US 1 bridge just up creek from up O'Galley River of dinoflagellate bloom, which was per-rocentrum minimum, and we did receive that report from Dr. Ed Flips at the University of Florida. That could be controlling some of these spikes that you're seeing, but we are also seeing a diatom pseudonychia popping up here and there, and that's happening throughout the lagoon. But the good news is we've not seen any major bloom activity. These turbidity spikes that you see accompany the fronts that we see coming through, and that's usually coming with rainfall and any of those wind events. I do want to point out the scale difference for Mosquito Lagoon. That goes up to 120, and compared to the other sites. Mosquito Lagoon does tend to stir up rather quickly because it is so shallow. And then that brings us to FDOM, and what you can see here is that our sites at O'Galley and Vero are usually the highest for FDOM. This is not unusual because those are next to our freshwater tributaries, so we do see that fresh water coming in. I just want to take a moment to talk about the rainfall that we've had over the last couple of months. Between the time period of December 1st and January 31st, we have seen quite a lot of rain. We've seen just over 7 inches of rain during this time period for the area that I'm showing, and that is cumulative in inches. If I go back in time on when we've seen a similar amount of rain, I have to go all the way back to 2016, which was a strong El Nino year, if you might recall. And during that year, we received, during this time period, just over 9 inches of rain. If I go back even further to the last time that we saw more than 7 inches of rain during this time period of December and January, I have to go back to December 2010 through January 2011, which was a moderate El Nino year. So this is a rather unusual time period, a rather unusual amount of rainfall for this time period. So what does that mean for our phytoplankton blooms? What does that mean for our seagrasses? For phytoplankton, it really is, we're in a bit of a wait and see moment right now. If you remember back in 2016 and back in 2011 when we were seeing rainfall like this, we did have some fairly substantial blooms leading into the spring and into the summer. I'm concerned but not alarmed that we could be in the position to see something like this again, but we really are in a wait and see mode to see which of our primary producers are going to take up those nutrients first. For seagrasses, I want to backtrack a little bit and bring you back to this past summer. Many of you recall that we were seeing some rather large increases in our seagrass beds in the Mosquito Lagoon, particularly southern Mosquito Lagoon area. So this satellite image is from mid-September, and I've zoomed in to show you these dark stretches that you see along the western shore of Mosquito Lagoon and along the eastern shore. Those are all increases in our seagrass beds. We were seeing a very substantial increase during that time period. We do have 2 permanent monitoring stations that we do in summer and winter, and the mean percent cover for the seagrass beds for those 2 locations was 62%, which was a very good number that we were seeing this past summer. We were very happy to see that. Now I want to bring you to something more recent. This image was taken in early January, January 5th. And if you see in the zoomed in image, we've lost a lot of the seagrass that was along that western shore in Mosquito Lagoon in the southern area, and then also some along the eastern shore. We did monitor the seagrass stations that we have just recently in these last couple of weeks, and that percent cover is now down below 5%. So we've gone from 62% to below 5% cover. But before I got too alarmed by that, I wanted to take a look at what it was last winter, because it's fairly typical for us to see a decline in percent cover during the winter. Last winter in 2023, at those same stations, we were also seeing less than 5% cover. And that led into that big recovery that we saw during the summer. So at this point, it's too early to tell whether or not we'll see a recovery like that, but I'm very hopeful that since we had similar percent covers, we will see something like that again. Something that I do want to point out, if you compare these 2 photos, you can see that there are some areas where we have more seagrass now than we had last winter. So that's very positive. They're in the very shallow areas, particularly on the eastern shore of southern Mosquito Lagoon. And that's all I have for you today. I'd be happy to take questions.
Any questions? Don't see any. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And for the Southern Lagoon, Dr. Melanie Parker.
Good morning, everyone. And my name is Melanie Parker. I'm representing the South Florida Water Management District, and I'm just going to give an update on our data sondes that are located in the St. Lucie estuary. These few slides have data through January 28th, and if I refer to a 7-day average, that's January 22nd through 28th. So the first figure on this slide, the large figure on the bottom left, is total daily inflows from each of the basins that feed into the St. Lucie estuary. For the past couple months, you can see that we had some big spikes in December and January, and again, those are related to these local event rainfalls we've had recently. If you look to the right, you can see the 7-day mean inflows for the most recent week of data from each of the basins and the total into the St. Lucie estuary, which was 653 CFS, and most of that came from the tidal basin, which is marked in the light blue on that figure. Again, and I also want to point out there have been no inflows from Lake Okeechobee into the St. Lucie estuary since April of 2023. Now, if we look at how that's affected salinity in the estuary, the map on the right shows the location of our 3 continuous salinity data loggers. Those are marked in blue at HR1, US1, and A1A. The table on the top left shows the 7-day average salinities at those locations for the most recent week of data. In the North Fork at HR1, salinities decreased to 4 on the surface and 6 on the bottom. At the US1 bridge, salinities were about 9 on the surface and 10 on the bottom. And at the A1A bridge, salinities increased just slightly to 19 on the surface and 23 on the bottom. If we put that in perspective with one of our recover indicator species, the oyster, the salinity performance measure for oyster is shown on the table, in the table on the bottom left. You can see that salinities at HR1 on the surface were in what we would call the damaging range because it was less than 5. But salinities on the bottom were a little bit higher and fell into the stressful range. At the US1 bridge, salinities on both the surface and bottom were right at the edge of the optimum range, near 10. And at the A1A bridge, both salinities were in the optimal range. Go on to the next slide. Looking a little bit more closely at salinity data in the top figure on the top left, that's daily mean salinity. We can see that that salinity has decreased steadily since about mid-December. And then the figure on the bottom is showing water column salinity, so the average of the surface and bottom at US1, which is located most closely to one of the most productive oyster bars in the St. Lucie estuary. That's called the Rio Station. You can see in the recent week that that salinity actually dipped down into the stressful range. It fell below 10 parts per thousand. The good news is this is happening during a time of year when the temperatures are cooler, which means that's one less stressor on these oysters. If this was happening in the summertime when water temperatures were very high, it would be a sort of a double whammy. But now, because these temperatures are so low at about 19 Celsius, it's not so much for the oysters to handle. And the good news is this week's data shows that salinities have already increased and are back in the optimal range at the US1 bridge. And this last figure just shows the latest results from FWC. They do the oyster recruitment monitoring at the Rio Station. This figure shows the last couple years of data, but if we just look at what happened in 2023, we can see that we had a peak in recruitment. It's a small peak, but it is a peak of about 1.3 spat per shell in April. And then in the fall, we have peaks that continued from about August through October, peaks ranging from about 1 to 3 spat per shell. It's not the best peaks that we've seen in past years, but the good news is we had very little months in the summertime between those peaks where recruitment went down to 0. So we had continuous recruitment throughout the season, despite those rainfall events and the high temperatures. And now that we're heading into to late winter, we're seeing those numbers decrease. As we'd expect, that's natural for oysters to stop spawning in the colder months. And that's all I have today, unless there are questions.
Any questions for Dr. Parker? Not seeing any. Thank you very much for your report. Next, item 8, we have the IRL NEP Management Conference Committee reports. Before I ask for the report, Dr. DeFries, I know there's been a change in chair and vice chair there. Can you update us on that?
Bob, are you going to go ahead and do that?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Good morning, Chairman, council members, staff, and guests. Bob Musser, Environmental Director at Port Canaveral and Vice Chair of your IRL Management Board. We had a great turnout at our meeting on Tuesday, right next door. First time we were in a new meeting location here at the historic Sebastian Elementary School. It was a nice meeting location. 25 members in attendance, along with 10 guests. We started the meeting at about 10:15 and finished up about 12:45 p.m. To your question, we conducted election of officers. Beth Powell, the Director of Indian River County Parks and Recreation, was elected chair. And Terry Breeden from the Brevard County Natural Resources Management Department was elected vice chair for calendar year 2024. I was the previous chair and I ran Tuesday's meeting. But unfortunately, I have several conflicts throughout the year, and I did not want to provide a disservice to the board if I couldn't be 100% in. So I did not elect to go after the chair position, but I'm not going anywhere. I've been here since the beginning in 2016, and I'll continue to serve on that board. So this will be my first and last report as chair of that board. I would like to just mention and thank previous chair Tom Carey from Volusia County. I know he was recognized at our meeting back in November. I hope he's enjoying retirement, and maybe he's watching us live today, along with the EPA staff that are watching as well. On the agenda in old business, your consent agenda item 9C, the board recommended approval of the revised MOA with Brevard Zoo. In new business, the board unanimously recommended approval of your agenda items 11A through D regarding fiscal year 2025 project funding request for proposals for water quality, habitat restoration, community-based restoration, and science and innovation, with a recommendation to add an additional $32,026 to fully fund a few additional proposals. The second ranked in habitat restoration for an amount of $17,840. The third ranked in community-based restoration in the amount of $11,974, and the fourth ranked in science and innovation in an amount of $2,212. This would bring the total approved projects in all categories to 11. Additional funds will come from EPA and local cost share, and I'm sure Dan will explain that further when he gets to that agenda item. We also approved the FY25 tentative budget, the 24 budget amendment, the EPA FY25 work plan, and the RFQ request for accounting and printing services, with a recommendation from staff to sole source the accounting services to continue to use SDS for seamless integration with the staff and with SDS in all things related to financial responsibility. These are your items under 11E to H under new business. Lastly, we had an excellent presentation from Dr. Holly Sweat with the Smithsonian Marine Station on the Indian River Lagoon species inventory. They've been doing this for 30 years, cataloging biodiversity in the IRL with a lot of funding that came from the NEP. Project started in 1994 with about 2,500 species documented, and in 1997 to almost 10,000 now, with more to come, covering mostly mollusks, fish, and arthropods. Their website, irlspecies.org, is a treasure trove of data, and certainly encourage you and the public to go take a look at it. It's very easy to navigate through the website. That includes my report, Mr. Chairman. Unless there are any questions, I thank you.
Any questions from the board? Bob, thank you for your service. We could all honor and appreciate your decision to not continue, so that there's no slowdown on the committee. But thank you for your report and your service.
Thank you.
You're welcome. STEM Advisory Committee, chaired by Dr. Jacoby, Vice Chair Chad Traxel, and Dr. Jacoby is going to give us the STEM Advisory Committee report.
Yes. Good morning. I'm the TBD for the STEM Advisory Committee. We likewise elected officers, and as you've heard, I'm carrying on, and Chad will carry on as Vice Chair. We went through the consent agenda that we had, and recommend that you proceed with the MOA with Brevard Zoo, the 2024 budget amendment, the 2025 EPA work plan, and the 2025 tentative budget. We likewise heard about the Indian River Lagoon inventory, species inventory, and again, I would recommend to you that you take a look. It's a valuable resource. And then lastly, we also recommended that you proceed with approving the ranking and funding of the 4 RFPs, as you'll hear about today, including the increased funding to spread the wealth a little bit better. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Jacoby? Thank you for your service, and thank you to Chad as well.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I want to just add one thing. At the STEM AC meeting, staff, and thanks to Dr. Jacoby's support, we have a draft Science 2030 document online, which will stand for about 60 days for review. So we're asking our management conference to weigh in And the goal of this document is to identify the top 5 priorities for research as we move forward towards that 2030 timeline. Pretty remarkable when you ask scientists what their priorities are. The first list, which we started a couple years ago, was hundreds of ideas. We distilled it down to 41, thanks to help from Dr. Jacoby. And we are going to really challenge our communities, both in the scientific and the management and the citizens, to weigh in. And then we'll come back at some point, either in the May meeting or possibly, if it goes longer, August, to bring this document to you all. But the goal is to identify, where do we need to put the money in the top 4 or 5 projects, so we have a position on research and the fact we all agree that science matters. And so there's a lot of holes in the databases. There's a lot of questions about what's going on out there. So I just wanted you to be aware that's available, and we'll be reaching out to your staffs to make sure we get good feedback on that draft document.
Thank you very much. Now for the report from the Citizens Advisory Committee, and you're going to do it.
Good morning. So Frank Catino was reelected as chair, and he had a charter today, so he couldn't be here. So he apologizes, but he's on the water. And Tess Saylor-Tynes from Marine Discovery Center was the vice chair. So they both kept their seats. As Chuck and as Bob said, the CAC recommended the MOA with Brevard Zoo. They wanted to put forward all of the RFPs, including the additional funds, as was mentioned. They also recommended the work plan, approval of the budgets, and issuing of the RFQs. And they also had a fairly robust discussion about combating the notion that's out there in public about how nobody's doing nothing. So that was very interesting and went on for quite a while with some really good suggestions. So we're going to take those in and see what we can do around that.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thanks.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item 9, the consent agenda. Does anyone have an item they would like to pull for comment or?
Make a motion to approve the consent.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. By Rob. I'm going to get everybody's name here. And the second was by Aaron? Okay. Any comments before we move on? All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is approved. We need to approve the November 17th, 2023 Board of Directors meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to do that?
Move approval.
That was Chris?
Yes.
And Rob makes a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries 7-0. And then we have we need to approve the First Amendment to agreement for Torsivia, Dunlun, Goodall, and Rubin, PA. This is actually the first request to increase hourly legal fees since 2015. First amendment to agreement would be effective March 1st, 2024, and it increases the hourly fees as follows. Partners from $275 to $295, senior associates from $225 to $260, and increases our fees by 3% each October 1st, commencing October 1st, 2025. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Rob makes a motion to approve.
Point of order. This is on the consent agenda, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. So you asked for a motion for the consent agenda, and actually we approved them all.
Okay.
Based on that, so you don't have to go through them individually.
Okay. So it's approved.
Okay. Okay. I just want. Sorry about that.
No, we were on.
Can't leave the gavel, man. I'm trying.
No,
I need a 30-day program or something.
Appreciate it. So C, D, E, all approved? No comments or, okay. Item 10, old business. Dr. DeFreeze.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We began discussing this at our November meeting. This is an agreement that we would enter into with University of South Florida in partnership with Department of Environmental Protection to cover summer salary for Dr. Chuck Jacoby to keep him engaged, not only in the Indian River Lagoon work that we do with Chuck, but also to make sure that we're in full alignment with executing the governor's intent for the Indian River Lagoon Conservation Program. The cost to us over the next 3 years would be slightly in excess of $50,000. That's going to keep a senior scientist not only focused on what we do, but also fully aligning what we do in the water quality world with what Dr. Raines is doing over on the Indian River Lagoon Protection Program, and also integrating with some of the work that Dr. Tom Frazier is doing at the university with the Flood Hub, which is where Chuck is spending a lot of his time these days. And so we're requesting your approval to go ahead and enter into that contract with the university. We have sufficient funds to cover that this year, and should you move this forward, we'll be executing that contract immediately after this meeting.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve.
Rob makes a motion.
I'll second it. And now we've got a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Rob makes a motion to approve, and Doug makes a second.
Yep.
And you had a comment?
If I may,
Please.
I just think Chuck's invaluable to the lagoon, and I just hope that we can continue holding him in somewhere, in some place permanently, because his knowledge of this lagoon, there's nobody else that has a better working knowledge of this lagoon. He's invaluable, and I just hope we can continue to have a relationship with him as long as we're here. So, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So I'll call for the vote just so that everybody is clear on what we're voting on. We're authorizing the staff to enter into a 3-year agreement with University of South Florida to work cooperatively with FDEP and USF to coordinate and align grant activities associated with the IRL Protection Program and the IRL NEP Comprehensive Conservation and Management Plan. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? And your request is unanimously approved. New business, Daniel.
All right, so every year we have our request for proposal process. This was probably the most unique year I have seen yet, in the 6th time I've done this. Some of the scores you're about to see were the tightest I can remember, including 2 categories that had statistical ties for first place. So I'm going to start with water quality. We also had 45 reviewers in this process, so thank you to all them. I want to just give a shout out to all the reviewers who helped me with this. And we received 30 proposals total. However, 4 of them had some either received after the time frame or were missing a few of their requirements and were deemed non-responsive. So 26 in total were reviewed. So water quality, the first place projects, because there was 2 of them, they were tied for first place, was from the city of Port St. Lucie to do a replacement of their failing A14 drainage control structure. And the second project that was also first place was from the Clean Water Coalition of Indian River County, who is planning to convert 35 septic systems to sewer, and these are primarily in identified priority communities. The third ranked project is from the city of Port St. Lucie. They would like to convert 112 homes from septic to sewer. However, they were asking for the entire allocated amount in that category, and because of the 2 top projects took significant amount, there's $50,500 left, which we recommend offer as partial funding, which should hopefully still allow them to do 15 or 16 conversions. And should that not be something they want to work forward with, you're going to see that funding can go to some of these additional projects that we're going to talk about here in a minute. Projects 4 through 8 on this list, as I'm going to show you, the Fort Pierce was ranked number 4, and then here's the remainder of that list. Martin County was 5th. City of Stuart with their Dyer Drive was 6th. Brevard County's Indian River 50 Quick Connects was 7th. And the City of Stuart at 8 for Lonita Drive, Villa Street. We're all ranked high enough for funding. However, there is not enough to fund all those projects. The town of Sewell Point, the last project, failed to reach that funding threshold and cannot be considered. The total requested amount in that category, by the way, was about $1.5 million. So there is a significant need. And so,
why don't we
motion to approve those?
Yeah. Why don't we take these?
Do you want to look at them all and then go back, or would you like to do each one at a time?
Why don't we do them as you go through them, one at a time? So if we could get a motion to accept the IRL NEP Management Conference recommendations and approve the final rank list of fiscal year 2025.
I'll make the motion.
Rob makes the motion to approve.
Yes.
Is there a second? And second by Libby.
Just a comment.
Chris, yes.
Just a comment. You know, oftentimes when we're sitting up here, I make the statement that St. Lucie County continues to put waste in Martin County through the 10 Mile Creek, and the septic to sewer issue is incredibly important in the Port St. Lucie area. 44,000 septic tanks are still active along the 10 Mile Creek. So as these things move forward, there's going to be a lot more action, hopefully by Port St. Lucie, to continue to address that problem. There's never going to be enough money in the short term to take care of that. But until St. Lucie County and Port St. Lucie remove those septic tanks from discharging into the 10 Mile Creek, we're not going to be able to help Martin County. So just always want to say that out loud so that they know that we're trying to work on it to help Martin County with water quality.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Then all in favor of approving the final rank list, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries unanimously. And then to follow up on that, we need to I would like a motion and a second to fund the top proposals contingent and consistent with available funds and budgetary authority, and authorize staff to negotiate and enter into contracts with these applicants. Is there
So moved.
a motion to approve by Rob?
Yep.
Second
Second?
by Chris. Any comment, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimously. Habitat restoration.
All right, habitat restoration. This category was the closest of all of them. Only 1 point separated all 3 projects.
Wow.
And 2 of them were tied statistically. So the top 2 were Riverside Conservancy, who aims to do a 1-mile living shoreline enhancement in Volusia County and install 250 oyster breakwaters. In addition, there's going to be a pilot seagrass project with Rupia, and many locations are in identified priority communities. The other top-ranked proposal is from Florida Oceanographic Society called Monitoring Mature Oyster Restoration Projects in the Indian River Lagoon and St. Lucie Estuary for practitioner application. So they're going to monitor those ecosystem services to develop a quick assessment monitoring guide for restoration practitioners. The third project, unfortunately, is out of the funding. That is St. Lucie County's North Fork. This is a multi-phase project to do. So this first one was a phase 1 feasibility to do an essential habitat restoration and reconnection in the St. Lucie Estuary. Because both projects the first 2 were ranked first, tied for first, and they were to fully fund those projects, it would take an additional $17,840 to fund those. So the management conference and staff were recommending, because they were tied and they were first place, to take funds from fund balance to fund both fully.
Okay. Let's divide this into 2 votes as well. First, to accept the IRL NEP Management Conference recommendations.
Move approval.
Move to approve by Chris and second by Rob. Any comments, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And motion carries unanimously. And then now to fund these top proposals, can I get a motion and a second on that? Motion to approve by Rob And the second comes from Aaron. Any questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that funding is approved 7-0. And now we move to the community-based restoration RFP.
All right, this is category 3. Again, this was a very tight spread in this category. Only 6 points were between projects 1 through 4, with only less than 1 point separating projects
Wow.
2, 3, and 4. So really, really tight projects. The top ranked project was from Brevard Zoo with the Restore Our Shores, installing buffered shorelines, which will also do a nutrient removal study in concert with FIT as a partner. The second ranked project is from Brevard County, who is partnering with a group called Pond Watch, and they're going to educate and train HOAs to monitor their ponds and implement best management strategies to help keep reduce nutrients from entering the IRL. The third ranked project is from Orca, who is also going to do a buffered shoreline demonstration project right here in the city of Sebastian at Riverview Park. They're also going to do a nutrient removal study as part of that project. And the fourth project is with Coastal Connections. They fell just outside of the funding by 0.3, sadly. They were going to do reducing debris and IRL revitalization of the monofilament recycling program. Now, to fully fund those top 3 would be an additional $11,974. And that was the recommendation from the management conference.
Okay. Yes.
If I may, on this one, I've been talking to
Your mic, Joe. Your mic.
That is a.
Can you make sure the red light is on your mic?
Being on where I live.
I don't think it's on yet.
It's a different.
In reference to this,
Okay.
to the habitat restoration, I'll ask you, then I'll ask the board, or let me ask the board first. This was beat out by 0.3 of a point with regards to this, and this is a project that's fairly inexpensive, but it shows immediate results. And I can tell you that the group that does this is more than worthy of our grant to this. They not only do this, they do turtle education, they help the county with our turtle surveys on the beaches and all that sort of stuff. They do a trash project right now, so they have expertise in this. And I'll ask Dana, do we have $36,000 that we can move this project into the top 3 spot with the other 3?
Yeah, we have additional funding. So you're going to see later in the agenda regarding SGS. They were instrumental partner with getting additional funding revenue that's kind of soft revenue for us. We don't put it on our budget amendments or any kind of budget resolution. They increased our rate with the bank, and so we're getting a better interest rate. We pulled in almost $125,000 in interest last year. That's soft money, and that can easily go in towards funding that project. Yes.
I mean, I like this project. It's immediate. It doesn't take heavy equipment. It doesn't take a whole lot of planning and zoning. It doesn't take a lot of regulations or permitting for this, to do this. And I met, and Kendra, who's in charge of Coastal Connections, is here if you have any questions for her. But what they do really alleviates a problem, and it doesn't cost, other than funding that this group could give or another agency that the county could give or something. That's the only cost to it. There's no additional cost in regard in it. So I would like to make a motion that we move it up and pay.
Can you put that slide back on with the rankings so we can all see what we're talking about? So your motion is to include item 3, the ocean research and coastal connections?
Yes.
Item 4, to fund them all. And Daniel, you said you can find the money.
I can find the money, yeah. So to do, and just with the 4th project that you're going to see in category 4, there's a small additional amount. That total amount would be $38,526 from fund balance to fund all these projects fully.
Okay.
It's just a really good program. It's fairly inexpensive, and the results are going to be immediate. So, so I'll make a motion that we fund
Okay.
this.
Joe Ehrman makes a motion to fund it, second by Rob.
Mr. Chair, question?
And questions and comments, Chris?
I think you have a speaker that did she not want to speak on this issue before we make a vote? Is that?
If she would wanted to speak, if we had questions for her. Do you have questions for her? You're welcome to come up.
Okay. I just,
No?
anytime we get a card like that, I just want to make sure everybody's taken care of.
Yeah. You're good? Okay.
And
We
Mr.
appreciate you
Chair,
being here. Yes.
I'd like to make a comment. This is not unprecedented. We've done this on a number of occasions. The board's process, I think, is great because the philosophy behind this is if we have the money and we have the right kind of numerical ranking, you know, let's put our money into projects. And so this did get discussed at our management board meetings earlier, and you have done this before. The one thing I want to remind you, though, and it's not happening in this case, is that we've never jumped over a project in order to fund a lower ranked project. But in a situation like this, you are well within your authority, and it's not unprecedented. We've done it before.
Okay, so the motion is to accept the ranking list of 1 through 4. Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And so now let's fund these proposals. Do I have a motion for funding?
Move approval.
By Chris, second by, was it Doug? Okay. Questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. That brings us to science and innovation.
Yes, so there was 10 proposals received, 9 were ranked, 1 was deemed non-responsive, and there was 4 projects that were within the funding category. The top ranked project was from a newcomer, new responded this year, the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. Wow. The PI, however, does live here in the region and is partnering with a local nonprofit, Orca, to do the development of a simple diagnostic assay for pyridinium saxitoxin monitoring and to train those citizens to collect samples. And you can see it's a very modest amount at $12,600. The second ranked project was from Florida Institute of Technology. This is a continuation of their project. They've been doing it for 2 years now. This would be the 3rd year to continue mapping hypoxia within the Indian River Lagoon and monitoring those nutrient fluxes around those sediments. The third ranked project is again from a new respondent called Lagoon Solutions. They are partnering with the University of Florida Whitney Lab to propose a pilot study to determine the nutrient removing potential of varying hydrologic regimes within a mosquito impoundment. So they're going to look at mosquito impoundment and see how they can help reduce nutrients. And the fourth ranked project is also from Florida Institute of Technology. This project aims to address seagrass sediment ecological knowledge gaps in the Indian River Lagoon by examining variations in sediment characteristics and some water chemistry at 19 sites that Brevard Zoo replanted last year. So they're going to look at some of those replanted sites and test those and see what they can discover on seagrass sediment ecological knowledge. And to fully fund that last fourth one would require $2,212. I'll show you the remainder of the rankings. Project 5 was from Bethune-Cookman, looking at reproductive success of seed production. They were ranked high enough, however, the money runs out there. The Ocean Research and Conservation Association was ranked number 6, looking at sentinel bioindicators, again, high enough for funding, but not enough funding there. And then the next 3 projects from Embry-Riddle, University of Florida, and Sea and Shoreline were all below the funding threshold. Glad to take any questions on those.
What is the board's recommendation for the approved list? Can you go back one slide? So
to fully fund all 4 of these projects?
The first 4.
This one? Oh, sorry.
Well, no, you had it.
Okay.
You had it correct.
Yeah.
And are you're recommending funding 1 through 3 only, or 4?
1 through 4. So 4, the reason it's like a light green is there's partial funding. It would require another $2,212 to fully fund it.
And nothing left for Bethune?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
You'd have to request an additional $55,540.
That's a lot, unfortunately.
I'll make a motion to fund the top 4.
Okay. Motion by Rob to fund the top four. Is there a second?
Second.
And second is by Doug. Any questions, comments?
I've got a comment.
Okay.
Dan, Dan, can you go to, on the other page, go to number 8?
Sure.
Brazilian pepper, isn't that already on the list to eradicate that wherever possible?
Yeah, so this project, they were looking at doing some additional testing on how to strategically get better at eradicating Brazilian peppers. And as you can see, the reviewers did not find this a very valuable proposal and ranked it below funding thresholds.
Just like Melaleucas and everything else, and it just needs to be done in. That is just one of the biggest things I see on our golf courses along our banks, the Indian River Lagoon. Anywhere we can, we need to eliminate that puppy as fast as we can. I was just curious why that would be needed to be studied, because it just needs to be dragged out of there and burned. But anyway, thank you, Dan.
Yep, sure.
Good point. Any other comments? All in favor of the ranking, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So let's fund these top proposals. Is there a motion for funding?
I'll make the motion.
Rob makes a motion for funding. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, was that Chris? Comments? Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Or how many of us are there? 7. Dan, that takes us to the tentative budget.
All right, so I'm going to go through the tentative budget. I want to note, though, that some of these numbers are going to change based on your recommendations that you just passed in those proposals. So some of these numbers you're going to see in that strategic program specifically are going to adjust when we get to the final budget come May. But, you know, this was produced before your recommendations, so I'll just go through it real quickly. This is what our tentative budget is going to look like overall. It's very similar to our current fiscal year, no changes in revenue. We're predicting federal Section 320 to kind of stay flat, really no increases this year. We're hoping to hold that number. Infrastructure and investment jobs law, again, same amount. License plate, we always estimate about 125, and of course your contributions at 1.5 million.
Move approval.
Was that Doug?
Yep.
Okay. Doug motions to approve the budget, and second by Rob. Questions, comments? All in favor of approving the tentative 2025 budget, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries 7-0 as well. Now for the fiscal year 2024 budget amendment.
All right, this budget amendment is very straightforward. It's in response to the decisions that were made back in the November meeting to increase staff salaries. And so we reduced our unplanned contingency reserve by that amount, as well as an amount in facilities and expenses. And that was in response to the actual lease agreement that we signed. Initially, we had estimated that amount to be closer to $30,000. The final lease agreement was $20,000, so we reduced that by 10 and $16,000 from reserves and put that into salary. And that's it. Very straightforward.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Rob, second by Aaron. Questions, comments? All in favor say aye of the amendment. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And that takes us to the fiscal year 2025 EPA workshop.
All right, so every year we have to submit a grant application for our EPA federal Section 320 funding. This is just asking for authorization to put together that work plan based on the line items that were in that tentative budget that we just approved. And so we're just asking for authorization to develop it and submit it on before that deadline of June 1st.
Make a motion to approve.
And Rob makes that motion to approve. And the second is by Aaron. Any questions on that item? Comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And your work plan is approved 7-0, Daniel, and that takes us to item H, new request for qualification. Oh,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to separate these two actions because there's one I want to at least have a discussion with you as the board. So the straightforward one is a request to release a request for qualifications for printing services. We've had some challenges over the years with the quality and the timeline of that, and we think that will save a lot of staff time and get a better product by doing an RFQ. So with your agreement, I'd like to move that action first before we consider special district services.
I'll make that motion.
And that motion to approve is made by Rob and second by Doug. Any questions for Dr. DeFreeze? Comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And motion to adjust is 7-0. Now your second.
The second item is Special District Services has been providing financial services to the IRL Council for really the entirety of our activity. They provide incredibly good service. We are coming up to the end of their 5-year contract term. I contemplated bringing this to you as an executive director sole source request for a lot of reasons. Number one, we have a very seamless relationship with SDS. We've figured out how to handle all of these complicated federal, state, local revenue shares and the license plate. And hopefully in the future, the revenue that'll come from the Brevard Zoo Aquarium. And that includes preparing us for annual audits and also preparing us for treasury draws, which we take, as needed from the federal government. The concern staff has is that we are totally pleased with the service they're providing and the cost, but I did not want to bring this as a executive director request to sole source without your full discussion and contemplation on moving that forward. It's within your authority to just extend that contract as it stands, and I did not want to try to push that as your executive director without opening this up for discussion.
So the options would be to issue a competitive RFQ or to renew the SDS contract because of their exceptional work and your staff's
That's correct.
approval of it. What's the board's?
Mr. Chair, having had some time here, I've seen some challenges when we go through our audits and things because things get very complicated with the revenue sources that come in, the timing of funds going out. And so it's taken time for our auditing group to understand how that works and to give Dan direction. And the opportunity for SDS has given us opportunity to actually increase funding in some areas with some of the ideas that they brought to us. So personally, I think we should stay with that because the confusion of the amount of effort from funds coming in, those going out, and managing the system, I think it's cumbersome for somebody else to come in. The learning curve would be too great, and I think this helps us save options and maintains that quality of representation.
Would you make a motion then to renew SDS and we can discuss it further if anybody needs to?
I'd like to make a motion to renew SDS contract.
So Chris makes the motion to renew SDS and Rob seconds that. Any further comment or questions? Then I'll call for the vote. All in favor of renewing that contract, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the SDS contract is renewed 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on to the staff reports, I'd like to request if we could take a 5-minute break.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
just
sir.
before you take that break, I've just gotten a text that Tom Carey is actually watching this meeting. So
Was there
in
any
his retirement, he's not golfing and he's not fishing. He's watching our meeting.
It is hard to give up. I'm just saying.
Was there any doubt? He'll probably write a critique on my first day as chair as well. So, all right, we will break. It's 11:23. Come back at 11:30, 11:28, okay.
Okay.
Thank you all. I think apparently that was a much-needed break. I will just point out that Doug from the St. Johns River Water Management District in part of my county had to leave. We still have a quorum, though, so we will continue on with the staff reports. Community engagement update, Kathy Hill.
We have our social media metrics for the previous quarter, October, November, December. And just as a comparison, the one before that, so sort of end of fiscal year in '23. So the new stuff's on the right, the old stuff is on the left. It was the holidays, so we don't have any earth-shaking metrics to talk about this time. We had Thanksgiving, Christmas, not everybody was out doing Facebook and Instagram, so not too much to report there that's novel and interesting. These are our top performing Facebook posts for the last quarter, so October, November, December. Still reaching a fairly good audience. When we do the reels do better. So any kind of video that folks do does better than just static pictures. And just as a quick aside, up in the top corner there, you can see the breakdown between men and women using Facebook. So 59% women, 41% men. On Instagram, we have a few more women and a few fewer men. And those are the top posts there. You can see the reel for October had 1,100 folks playing it. And that was sort of our biggest post. For the community engagement coordinators, these are their metrics for the first quarter of the year. So 8 government meetings, 26 events. They were super busy with events this last quarter. 11 presentations, 20 community meetings. They were out in the field 9 times, despite how cold it was, and did 41 outreach things. And that could include things like planning with partners or going to meetings to co-sponsor events and things of that nature. So, and I want to close with just an invitation for all of you to come and come over to the office after the meeting is done. We have given as thank you gifts the polo shirts that we bought as swag. The polos, for some reason, do not sell. Nobody has bought them. Even though everybody promised us, we're going to buy swag, we want your polo shirts. Nobody bought any, so they've been sitting around for the 2 years that we've had them. So please come and get a polo shirt or 2. If you have staff who works on Lagoon stuff, we'd love for them to have that too. So, and also the other reason for the invite is to come and see the new space upstairs in the building right next door that we have recently taken over. So we have the first room outfitted for a meeting room, and we'll be doing the other large room up there soon. So that's it from me.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation for the tour. Is there food?
We can arrange a reservation for lunch.
Okay, information technology and data science, KJ.
Hello, Commissioners. So last time we were in SURF, like half the team was here and then the other half went to our SURF conference in Portland. But we launched our master project map. So all of our projects that we funded from 2016 to the present, 2024, is on there as well. It is available on our website. So this is iteration 1, and we're hoping by the end of the year, iteration 2 will come out. And so it's it has information about how much funding they received, the final projects, any final project report, any funding, all the funding amount, and then the source of where it came from. I've already started to get some critiques from people, which I'm really excited about because point 2 will come out, but this is going to tie directly into our CCMP, so all of our vital signs, so where each of these projects fall into our CCMP. I'm just talking about some of the major projects that we're doing for 2024. So we had the Boater's Guide completed by FWRI and Marine Resource Council. This is going to be a digital web application. Please don't use it as like a navigational guide, but it's going to have just all the information, manatee wake zones, boat ramps, a bunch of information. That's all going to be available. We're also doing a website update, so we're just a little bit easier to use, a little more information. The master project list number 2.0. And then this is the one I'm most excited about, a lagoon history story map. So I actually have some interviews with some older fishermen along the lagoon about how they've seen it change. I actually have a meeting with NOAA next week talking about publishing oral history and talking about oral history and hopefully getting a course done with that. So that's what I'm super excited about. It's kind of like a passion project that we're doing. But it's going to be kind of an interactive story map, and we're going to be talking to, I have Charlie Sembler's name. I have, I think, a list of 10 others as well. And excuse me, Kalita took me down to the Fort Pierce Historical Society, and I met someone named Terry Howard, who's written a bunch of books in Fort Pierce area for kind of like offshore fishermen. But he has some projects with USF where he's also recorded a bunch of like oral history, but it's all been transcribed. So we're hoping to bring that in as well. Yeah, and that's all I have.
Thank you very much. You have a question from Chris.
I haven't seen it yet, so forgive me if it's already in there, but are pump out stations listed in the document? Because in St. Louis County, we now have probably 80 different vessels moored in the inlet and throughout the lagoon. And so it's getting to be very difficult that, we need to, we're going to try and do something locally, but we need to be able to get that message out where pump out stations are, because some of these sailboats are just sitting open cocked and letting everything flow into the lagoon. And so we're trying to figure out how to manage that as well.
If I may, Commissioner, it does have marinas on there. However, pump out stations were not part of that initial mapping, but that's an excellent suggestion, and I think we should add that if we can.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Cool. Thank you very much. IRL project update, Daniel.
All right. So for quarter one, we actually had a very busy quarter with projects wrapping up and finishing, and I'm just going to kind of highlight all those for you. Currently, there's still 45 projects or activities in progress, 5 projects completed, and you can see the list here. I'm going to kind of touch base on all of them a little bit, just to kind of give you the highlights of all of them. And so I'll give you another second to read that, and then I'll go into each one. So the first project is Indian River County's North Sebastian Phase 2 Septic to Sewer. This was actually one of our oldest projects on the list, so glad to see this wrap up. On the bottom right there in that map, you can see in those blocks kind of where these septic systems were removed, and you can see they're right up against the edge of the Sebastian River, so really important on getting those nutrients out. 15,950 linear feet of gravity and force main, 155 residents or commercial properties were connected, and 158 septic tanks abandoned. And you can see the estimates for nutrient reductions there on the screen. Indian River Land Trust wrapped up a 2-year study looking at mosquito impoundments and seeing how modifications or management of that impoundment could help benefit vital nurseries for fish. They looked at 4 different impoundments, and really what the takeaways from this 2-year study is that they vary so much in their habitat, structure, water depths, and environmental conditions that no one strategy would work for all of them. You kind of have to look at each one individually and then decide your rotational impoundment structure strategy. So here's just some data, and it's kind of just shows you everything's all over the place. So in the bottom right are 4 graphs from the impoundment showing over a 5-year or a 5-month period dissolved oxygen inside in the green bar, and then the blue is outside. So you can see they're all over their place. There's really no pattern to it. And then in the bottom left is a graph showing the size structure of these fish in those impoundments. And you can see a couple of them really leaned heavily on having smaller size class, and some of the other impoundments had more individuals of the larger size class. And all the other fish kind of followed that same pattern. So there's really no one strategy for impoundment management. Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission did a monitoring and improved hydrology, water quality, and mangrove recovery in the Jensen Beach impoundment. This photo that you can see on the bottom right shows you what that impoundment looks like. Those 3 arrows pointing down from the control into the stressed mangrove forest was installed right before this project started. During the project, they installed that 1 arrow pointing to the left out into the Indian River Lagoon. And I'm going to kind of show you what it looked like over a long period of time, that improvement. So here you can see on those pictures right before Hurricane Irma, which is what damaged this impoundment. You can see post-Hurricane Irma there in the B, January 2018. That eastern cell kind of recovered on its own, and you can still see that southern cell was staying dead. As soon as they opened those the hydrogeologic connectivity floodgates and culverts, that southern cell started to recover. And what they found was that the ammonia and phosphorus levels were kind of stagnant and staying very high in that southern cell. Once they opened that culvert, it all left and lowered, and it started to recover. And this is just kind of showing you a map of that connectivity, showing you how connected these impoundments really are, as well as some of the total dissolved carbon and organic carbon, I'm sorry. This third project is Martin County's reduction of total nitrogen and total phosphorus using floating wetland treatments. This was a pretty straightforward project. This is actually a fiscal year 2024, so they completed this project within the first 3 months. They just removed some old and outdated treatment wetlands from 2 STAs, the Golden Gate and the Old Palm City. They installed 12 new floating treatments in them for 6,280 square feet. These new treatments actually have an improved design and almost double the lifespan, which is significant. And they're able to actually harvest without pulling the whole treatment out. So they can let the plants grow up, harvest them, and they'll just keep growing. So it's a win-win on this one, and you can see the nutrient reductions here. And just a picture of the people putting it together. And then here's kind of a picture showing the before and after of the old system and then the new system going in. And then lastly, I just want to touch on a small grant that wrapped up. This was Stella Maris Environmental Research, Inc.'s Stella's EcoStars small grant. And so this small grant, less than $5,000, was able to give day camps and scholarships for 30 new participants, primarily from priority communities through partnerships that you can see here on the screen. These camp locations include Sebastian Inlet State Park, Fort Pierce Inlet State Park, and Long Point Campground in Brevard County. Those activities included lessons on the IRL, getting in the water, doing some seine net collections, exploring the different flora and fauna, and then some paddle boarding. They also did a pre and post learning assessment so they could kind of gauge how impactful these were to the students. And here's just some pictures showing the kids having a good time out in the field. And you can see there on the bottom left the pre and post assessment. You can see more than half of the participants didn't get any questions right before. And then after, 75% of them got almost all the questions right. So pretty impactful for these kids. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Daniel Kolodny? Thank you for your report, and that brings us to the Executive Director's report, Dr. DeFries.
And before I go into my report, I just want to reiterate a big thank you to our volunteers who did the reviews on the RFPs. That's a heavy lift, and there's such a short timeline. So I also want to recognize Dan's work on that. Those proposals came in on January 5th, and here we are passing a budget, and funding requirements. And we have been really busy the last 6 weeks as staff moving those through the process. I want to talk about a couple things. Item number one is that we have teamed up with the Southeastern Caribbean Disaster Resilience Partnership, which includes North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, to submit a proposal to NOAA. It's called a CRRC grant. And this is a Climate Community Challenge grant. This will go in next Tuesday. We are going to focus our efforts in Florida on assembling data for the state, and we'll work closely with DEP on that. But most importantly, we have chosen one of our priority communities in the city of Fort Pierce, the Moores Creek community. I want to look at Kalita and say thank you. I reached out. I've got a heavy lift on the writing of this, and we needed to have letters of support. And Commissioner Zadofsky, really big thanks to Sandra Bogan. But between Kalita and Sandra, we're covering like 30% of all those states' support letters, and it happened in days. So I made the request, and within a week, we probably had 7 or 8 letters of support. We'll keep you posted, but that'll be the second NOAA proposal that we've submitted. We still haven't heard from NOAA on our $12 million habitat restoration project, and it may be another couple of months before we actually hear about these 2 competitive programs. Item number 2, had a great field trip to take a look at the new growth and some of the really pristine areas up at Kennedy Space Center. So thanks to the KSC team and the contractors, got on an airboat, saw some of the great salt marsh habitats, did some, watching of redfish tagging, and reminded me about how unique Kennedy Space Center is as a commercial and federal government launch facility, and at the same time, one of our great national wildlife refuges. And there's a lot happening up there, and we'll keep you posted as we move forward. I've been out of state for 2 meetings. One was the Socorro board meeting up in Charleston in December. The second was this month in Savannah, Georgia, for the SCDRP annual meeting. Just as a heads up, as of yesterday, I became the chair. I was elected chair to be the SCDRP advisory board chair for this year. So we'll be representing both the NEP and Florida on that board. One other point I want to make, I think that's important, that's not on this list, is you remember we were requesting legislative language up in Florida with this legislative session to see if we could get some exemption language to allow our advisory volunteer members to participate in those meetings this week using electronic media. Big thanks to Senator Tom Wright up in Volusia, who carried the Senate bill. That went through, if I remember, we were at 3 committee stops. Representative Thad Altman was carrying the House bill. We had language challenges. Thanks to Glenn Torsivia, we went back and forth with, the House side. I thought we were dead in the water on that one, but it turns out that there is another House bill that's very similar. And so Senator Debbie Mayfield let me know that there was still hope for that. And so I want to thank Senator Mayfield, but I also want to thank staff. Both Angelique Rinaldi at Representative Altman's office and Diane Sudds at Senator Wright's office have been just amazingly good at keeping me abreast of what's going on without having me go up to Tallahassee and chase information. So big thanks there. And then lastly, you see how many presentations that I've made individually. Staff, we are on the street in a heavy way. It seems like 2024 is the emergence of, post-COVID. Everybody's got meetings, everybody's got workshops. We'll continue to represent you everywhere and anywhere we can. And so those organizations who may be listening in, or your, commissions and councils, should you want presentations from myself or staff, just ask and we'll try to schedule it in. And that's all I have, I think, for my report today, other than thank you again for your support at the board with this agenda. And it's kind of hard to believe, but we're going to be moving to the mid-year already in this fiscal year. It's going fast. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? No, thank you very much. So that brings us to council members' reports, and I'll start all the way down on my left with Libby Pigman from South Florida.
Sure, so I always forget this.
There you go. Yep, there you go.
Okay. Well, we just celebrated the completion of the EAA STA. The governor came down for that, and that was an exciting day. That was about 2 weeks ago now. Something that we're monitoring very closely is the level of Lake Okeechobee. Lake Okeechobee today is at 16.32 feet.
The Army Corps was doing their media call at 11:30, so I'm anxious to see what they say, but we're expecting that there will be some discharges to the St. Lucie Canal at the S308 structure because we've got to get the lake down. It's actually gone up during the dry season. So we're anxious about that, and we're expecting that there will be some discharges. And there was a periodic scientist call the other day, and they were discussing that it would be better to do the discharges sooner rather than later because of the spawning season for the oysters. So just be expecting that they're likely going to be making those discharges here in the next little bit. We had a series of open house meetings up in the Orlando area for the Headwaters program. So we finished the restoration of the Kissimmee River, but the last component of that is implementing the headwater stages. So on lakes Kissimmee, Cypress, and Hatchnahaw, we're going to start incrementally storing more water in those lakes during the dry season, and we've started doing the process of open houses with the Army Corps of Engineers to update those regulation schedules. And then the next important thing is, I think I've shared with you before, the Lake Okeechobee Component A reservoir, which is the northern storage piece that has been missing through SERP. We began that process about a year ago, and within that year we have completed the Section 203 study, and in January we submitted that. So in a year to get that 203 study and submitted, we hope that it gets put into WRDA this year, and we'll be able to get that large reservoir, which will store 200,000 acre feet before it reaches Lake Okeechobee. So those are some exciting things happening with South Florida Water Management District.
Thank you very much. Aaron Watkins from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to reemphasize what Dr. Raines had to say regarding our historic funding and support from the governor's office and the legislature regarding water quality improvement projects, specifically with the Indian River Lagoon. The first $100 million dollars allocated. There's 21 projects that have been identified for that, so that's significant and a fantastic start. I also want to commend Dr. Raines for, you get to travel around the state and see all the estuaries, all the water that we have. You mentioned Everglades, but the fact that you're also an advocate of the Indian River Lagoon is really cool, so thank you very much for that. It's already been a very busy legislative session that's going on right now. The department is proposing a couple Senate bills, Senate Bill 1386 and House Bill 1557, and that's going to further formalize and streamline our programs so that we are protecting Florida's environment in the most collaborative and conscientious way possible. It includes protection for coral reefs and aquatic preserves, improving treatment for reclaimed water, strengthening Florida's resilience planning, investing in innovative technologies, which further helps water quality issues, expanding wastewater facility plans and requirements in basin management action plans areas, and then also furthering our on-site septic program transfer. So, I also commend all our folks up in Tallahassee, our leadership in Tallahassee, our division folks. As a regulatory office, we're focused on processing applications and doing compliance evaluations and working with complaints, and our Tallahassee folks have a big lift with all the legislative work that they do in the committees, and I just want to commend them for, that's a lot of work, and they're doing a tremendous job this session. There's a lot going on. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Commissioner Rob Feltner of Brevard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to recognize Virginia Barker from Brevard. She's our Natural Resources Director. So patiently sitting out there and occasionally sends me something to say up here. She sent that the other day, so I'll give you some things that we've done in Brevard, and I'll do it quickly. Work completed this quarter, leaky sewer lateral repairs, 860 of 952 leaks detected on private property and have been repaired. Individual quick connects to sewer, 62 more homes connected. Septic upgrades, 17 more septic systems upgraded. South Central C septic to sewer service area expansion completed, 22 of 145 homes connected. 4 derelict vessels removed. Mel High and Funeral Home baffle box completed. Titusville St. John's 2 baffle box completed. University of Central Florida conducted monitoring of planter boxes in McNabb Park and found 75 to 87% survival of red mangroves, 83% survival of smooth cordgrass, and new recruitment of mangroves. University of Central Florida conducted monitoring at Rainwater Oyster Project and found approximately 5,300 oyster spat settled per square meter. FDEP Innovative Technology Grant demonstrated their algae harvesting barge. Final report due in April. Finally, progress today, 88 public projects complete. 21 public projects are in construction phase. 52 public projects are in design or permitting. 1,295 private homeowner projects are complete. 353 more private homeowner projects contracted. Total nitrogen reduction achieved, 257,934 pounds. Total phosphorus reduction achieved, 15,412 pounds. So congratulations to our natural resources and soil for getting that all done.
Excellent. Chris, you don't have anything to say, do you?
Yeah, just a couple things real quick. Some good and sad news. I've been trying to keep you updated on septic to sewer on the North Beach area of St. Lucie County, right along the Lagoon. And I want to say thank you, and the good news is FDEP has been very supportive of our effort. And the sad news is the one community I mentioned before chose not to give us the easements to be able to run the sewer lines in the community. So that will be a community, the only community on North Beach that is not connected to septic to sewer. I feel bad for them, and I'm sad for them, because in the next 10 years, when the latest legislation goes through, those septic tanks are going to have to go on sewer, and it's going to be that much more costly without the grants that we've been able to secure with the support of FDEP. So unfortunately, that's the good and the sad news of that particular situation. And Aaron mentioned the innovative technologies. I think I want to try and have eco-links. I shared that conversation with you. And Kalita, I'm going to put you on the spot if you want to come up. Kalita's been very busy in the region doing her work. Ecolinks is a company that has a product, a machine, if you will, that provides an opportunity to reduce contaminants in stormwater and wastewater. And we had a presentation at the wastewater plant on North Beach in St. Lucie County 2 weeks ago now. And Kalina, do you want to share your experience and what you envisioned and what you saw, or what you saw in that demonstration?
Yes. Now, I have to preface this with saying that I am the non-scientist, science person on staff. So when I went, I was just kind of like, let me see what's going to happen. And what they did is they took a magnet and polymer, took the muck out of the sewer, dropped it in a vessel of water, and put the magnet inside, and all of the gook just magnetized into a ball. And then she put her hand inside and showed us the minerals and told us that there are other ways that we can use those minerals for other things, but now this water is clean. And what was, I can't remember what the measurements were, but it took the clarity of it, I'm gonna use that term for lack of better words, but from 227 to 20 in a matter of seconds. I can't think of what that term is, if somebody, Yes, NTUs. So I thought that was amazing, in
And
just a matter of
It was
seconds.
941 down to 40 originally, and then it went from 40 to 21,
And they
so.
explained that if it sat there longer, that it would continue to clean it. So it was an amazing demonstration. Everyone there, all the partners there, everyone was shaking their head and going like, wow, this is pretty amazing. So we've been in communication. They intend to come back to St. Lucie County again. This was their first time demonstrating in Florida, and they're from Florida. So it was an amazing opportunity to see some of the work that we can participate in and hopefully encourage our partners to do.
Yeah, and we get approached all the time for different, snake oil salesmen, so to speak, and so it's always, you want to vet these things as well as possible to make sure that, what you're seeing is true and real. So the data collection has been done and the science is being applied to what they presented. The machine itself is probably about the size of a box truck. It's not very large. But they took right from the main drain on North Beach, and I mean, it was not even remotely treated, and it was incredible the outcome was to see how that water changed. So that data and the science applied to that is going to come back to us. So in a separate area, we're looking now to move it to the landfill to take our leachate and to see if this product actually this machine will actually do stormwater and leachate and remove N and P at a greater rate so that we can actually reduce our discharges into the deep well from leachate. But as importantly, we have a number of stormwater ponds all around St. Lucie County. If this could be mobile and go to each of these lakes and manage the water and taking out N and P and other contaminants and then put into a separate STA as it returns back into the system, I could see us actually increasing our ability to reduce TMDLs in our stormwater systems. We know that our TMDL comparison, the cost associated with it, in St. Lucie County alone, if we're able to achieve that goal, is about $1.6 billion in cost. So if this machine actually functions and shows the science and shows the backup, there's an opportunity for us to actually reduce our stormwater contaminants greatly. And so I'm excited to see, if all that does work, but I'm always skeptical, and so there's that. So hopefully when we do that next presentation, or they do that next presentation, there's an opportunity for some other scientists, maybe even from the NEP here, or FDEP from the Innovation Technology to show that the value, if there is such a thing. So that being said, that's all I have for today. I know I went a little long this morning, so.
No, you didn't. Thank you very much. Joey Ehrman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everything is busy up in Indian River County. I see our lagoon specialist, Melissa Messenberg, in the back. She's here for the meeting. She's got a lot going on. We are doing pretty well on our derelict vessel removal project. We removed quite a few, and we've got some more online to come through, and I think every vessel we do, it gets easier, it gets a little bit better of how to do it. So it appears to move a little faster, maybe even each time. Of course, septic to sewer is big for us. We've got 2 more septic to sewer projects coming online pretty soon, even the one that Dan showed you, but there's a couple more coming online that we'll start working with that. But the big thing is, and Heather Stapleton's a member of this committee for us, the Environmental Lands Acquisition Panel. It was approved by a voter referendum back in 2022 of almost 80% to support a $50 million bond for Indian River County to buy conservation lands and money that could go towards lagoon improvements. The committee was formed and met. They've done all their preliminary work, and now it's ready to go. So we will start taking nominations for possible conservation lands on March 1st. It's on the Indian River County website for anybody that might be out there listening that would know of any property in Indian River County that would be worthy of that nomination. We're also working with the Land Trust. They're kind of a integral part of this group in an outside way, but that's probably the biggest thing, that we're ready to move and on a $50 million land bond, and see where that takes us and see what we can do to improve lagoon management and put some more needed land and conservation. That's all I got.
It's excellent, thank you. And I guess I'm last. I'll start off with, I wanted to welcome Jennifer Spain. I'm not going to make her stand up and talk on her first meeting, but she is now my associate team member here for the Indian River Lagoon Council. Can't replace Tom Carey, but who is probably still listening to us, but she works in environmental in the county. She's a tremendous asset, and I appreciate you coming up and look forward to working with you. Dr. Raines, thank you again, I guess from all of us for coming, for your work. Just a couple of quick things. Some of these I've brought up before. The Indian Harbor Estates septic to sewer retrofit. That's in partnership, and this is really important for the counties to work with the different municipalities, but we're working with the City of Oak Hill. They're the lead. The county's Water Resource and Utilities Division is continuing to provide project inspection and administrative assistance during construction of the vacuum sanitary sewer system retrofit in the Indian Harbor Estates community. As of Thursday, February the 8th, Volusia County received final clearance to begin retrofit of septic to sewer on approximately 300 homes within the estate. And then we have our Living Docks program, the Environmental Management Division's Water Quality Program and Manatee Protection Program has begun a Living Docks program within Volusia County. 5 oyster mats were deployed on January 24th at numerous docks, Seabridge Riverfront, River Ocean Shore, and the list goes on. Daniel, when we're done, I'd like to get the name from you of the new mats that you showed us for living plants to, we use Beeman plants a lot in Volusia County, or mats. That one looked really interesting. The other thing that I guess I would end with, I think I've mentioned this before, the Reovation. You can look them up at reovation.com. It's a company that has a new technology for greatly reducing the amount of nitrogen and phosphorus in the septic tank without any chemicals. It's an insert of 3 tubes. It acts like almost like an aquarium filter, and it takes a natural bacteria that's already in a septic tank and grows these long filaments that take the nitrogen and the phosphorus, and we don't know what else out of the water, but I don't know how many of you have seen the inside of a septic tank. It's not a pretty sight. They drop these in there, they run oxygen through it, that's the only additive, and it turns the water clear. It also reduces the sludge almost completely. I've worked 8 months to try and get this, just to try and get a permit from the EPA to test it, because it's a new system, a new technology. It has to be tested, it has to be approved. We made progress about 2 weeks ago with one of the divisions of the EPA, and they have us on track to, they're actually going to provide a grant. We hope that we will qualify for it. They said it would take 18 months. We were just discussing, Chris and I are both up for re-election. One of the reasons that we are running again is because Chris said government moves slowly. And that continuity, projects that we've worked on, you just really want to see to completion. So I've worked on this 8 months, and then I just learned it's going to be 18 months to get the permit and the grant. But it's also, they were requiring testing on 30 individual septic systems. We got it down to 3. 3 to improve and 3 as controls. Stetson University is going to do the testing, and lo and behold, right next to Stetson University's Aquatic Center, there are about 30 homes, and they're being approached now to see if they would like to take part of the project, because it really doesn't alter their property at all. So we're excited about that, and lastly, I'll say, one of the members of the public here this morning said that, you know, mitigation is good, we kind of focus on that, but prevention is better. Why don't we stop the problems before they develop? And in Volusia County, we had a new interchange approved on I-95 and Pioneer Trail, and I opposed it. I called a press conference and opposed it based on the legalities of it. And it was approved anyway, but the community got together and we had an administrative hearing, and it just went to court with Dr. Edward Early. And he came back already with a finding that says, no, this permit should not have been issued, and we need to take a second look at this. And the reason I opposed it is because we already have two interchanges on either side of it close by. The purpose of the interchange was to increase development east of 95, between 95 and Spruce Creek. Spruce Creek is an outstanding Florida waterway that empties directly into the Indian River Lagoon. It's also on the impaired waterways list. Building houses right up to the border of it in what is now wetlands and a watershed for the Spruce Creek, in my opinion, is not a good idea. We have to change where we're developing and how we're developing. So I was really pleased to see Judge Early's report. Don't know where it will go, but it buys us some time to at least improve what might happen there. I'm hoping that we can stop it. It's part of the wildlife corridor. They would really like us to purchase it. And so we're looking at that. Prevention, thank you for bringing that up this morning. And with that, I thank you for bearing with me on this first council meeting. When we're done here, I'm going to ask if everybody would stay and have Kathy take a quick picture. We'll kind of reenact that. Again, I personally really appreciate have really grown to respect you and what you have done, and I'm glad to have gotten to know you. So we'll get a couple quick pictures, but with that, at what time is it? 12:14, 15 minutes early.
Good job.
We will adjourn.